Hello, and welcome here, or welcome back. Well, here we go. Days 3 and 4 put together into one video. We woke up, went to the Aviation Museum here in Ottawa first thing in the morning. It was so cool. I don't want to draw this video by having a bunch of my lame pictures of planes, but it's really awesome. Aviation museums are the greatest thing ever, obviously. So that ruled. As a happy little side coincidence of leaving half a day early, I ended up getting to see a buddy of mine over in Ottawa. So I'd contacted him the night before. I said, hey man, can I sleep at your place? And he said, yeah, that's cool. So that's what I did. I slept over at his place, and of course, I didn't realize this, but he just had a single bedroom studio apartment. So it was a little bit of a cozy setup, but it was still great. Anyhow, once we were done there, we took a ride out through Ottawa, right downtown. I got to see a little bit of Ottawa when I moved to New Brunswick, but not very much. But this was neat. It was a super hot day, but luckily it wasn't too hot quite yet. And got to pass by the parliamentary buildings, which, heck yeah, you know? So the idea of today was that my friend here had to be at work by 12:30 or so. So I'd be leaving Ottawa around then. And then there's actually a really good friend of my mother who lived in the Huntsville, Ontario area. So that's where I was going to spend the night tonight. So I had the entire day to go not terribly far, which was nice. Now, getting out of Ottawa itself, not that big of a deal. You know, connect a few highways, no problem. And then once you get outside of Ottawa, or at least on the route that I was going on, the next major town was Renfrew, which was cool. That was the first, what would you call that? I guess, rural town that I was passing through. Not that it's, really far out there, but it's a nice little town. They had this really cool Avro Aero because there was one of the test pilots from the Avro Aero program was born here and lived here. So there's a really cool memorial of him there. And then I continued down Highway 60 through the Algonquin Provincial Park. Now, up to this point in riding, I've more or less had, roads I was satisfied with, I would say. Nothing boring, nothing really repetitive, just good stuff, appropriate speed limits, riding along, right? But somebody out there, I don't know if this is a national park thing, but I greatly suspect that it's provincial government's fault. Somebody in the provincial government sat down and they said, what should the hundreds of kilometers from Renfrew to Huntsville be? Should it be 100 kilometers an hour like the rest of the country? Should it be 110 kilometers an hour like they use in New Brunswick? Or should it be 80? And that's just the thing. They went with 80. I don't know. Sometimes I'm curious. They say that politicians who vote for wars should have to go to war themselves so that they can see that it sucks, right? I feel like whatever committee got together and decided that the 240 kilometers from Huntsville to Renfrew ought to be 80 kilometers an hour, I feel like all of them should have got in a bus with nothing to do but sit there and go drive that 3 hours all the way, going 80 kilometers an hour. Maybe they would have thought, hey, this is a long straight road with nobody on it. Maybe we should just go ahead and up it to 100. But I assume they didn't do that, so they kept it at 80. And this was the first stretch of road along the whole trip where I was pretty done with being on this particular road. But what matters for right now is that I did finally make it to the end of the 80 zone because I entered little squigglies, to get over to the place where I was staying for tonight. And the squigglies were squiggling, and they were so much fun. And then I got to have a home-cooked dinner, and the next morning, a home-cooked breakfast, and things were looking great. Well, that is to say that they were looking great, except for this is the spot where I noticed that my rear wheel was covered in oil. So in the moment, I had kind of decided I was just going to clean it up. I had a couple of rags with me, so clean it up a little bit. And I thought, no, I'm gonna roll this into Sudbury, and then once I get to Sudbury, I'll do something smart. but I hadn't decided what that was. I figured by the time I got to Sudbury that I would know what to do, and then I would do that, and then everything would be fine. Now, as it turned out, I got to Sudbury, and then I didn't feel like doing anything about it. And then it didn't really leak very much oil by the time I got there, so I decided not to do anything about it. And I thought, maybe I'll do something about it when I get to Sault Ste. Marie, for instance. And then I got to Sault Ste. Marie, and then I didn't do anything about it. And then I continued to not do anything about it for the entire trip, and it didn't blow up. So that was kind of lucky on my part. But you know what else was good? Because there are so many good things. Another really good thing was that in between Huntsville and Sudbury, Ontario, was this section of highway, a divided highway. The speed limit of 100 kilometers an hour. And after yesterday, it just felt so good to go a good speed again. So I was riding high, heading into Sudbury. And Sudbury itself, really fine town. A little bit a very industrial town, no doubt. But hey, you know, they've got the thing. Part of the reason why I chose this route was to see this Stomping Tom statue. I was so excited to see the Stomping Tom statue. And all the way up to it, I thought, I'm going to do like this bit. I'm going to sing a Stomping Tom song. And then I went and stood beside Stomping Tom. I just chickened out. I couldn't do it. Oh, what a loser. Anyway, after missing out on the Stomping Tom thing, made my way up to the Alex Trebek. Alec? Mr. Trebek. The Alex Trebek. Because Alex Trebek was from the Sudbury area. How about that? Two extremely great Canadian icons, both from Sudbury. Except for that Stomping Tom wasn't actually from Sudbury. He was from St. John, New Brunswick. But he basically talked like he was from Sudbury, so that's good enough. And then in case the statue and the memorial weren't quite exciting enough for you, because this is Sudbury and they mine for nickel here, they also have a giant nickel up above the town. I mean, it looks big in pictures, and it's even bigger in person. This thing was actually sick. So I think this is one of my favorite statues, monuments, landmarks that I saw the whole way across the country. Was this great big nickel. Way to go. 10 out of 10, Sudbury. Now, leaving from Sudbury, it was perhaps a little bit cool, but otherwise it was really nice. The next spot along the pathway here was going to be Echo Bay, and there's going to be a great big loony over there. So it was kind of funny leaving a nickel behind and going to a loony. But you know, I don't decide what the landmarks are. I just follow them. So this was a nice little stretch of road. Nothing super big, you know. Ontario's fine, but there's a lot of emptiness in Ontario.
See everyone over there in Sudbury, they're all stupid because they mine for nickel. They're pulling coins up out of the ground, 5 cents at a time. They're over here in Echo Bay. They're smart, big brains. They mine for loonies instead.
So my end point for tonight was to get somewhere kind of past Wawa. I didn't want to stay in Wawa in particular, but just somewhere past it. I had a camping site picked out. So the rest of the evening was really smooth, you know? So many lakes. Ontario's just got so many lakes. You're cruising along, beautiful day, lakes, more lakes. And that's sick, you know? I legitimately never get tired of riding past lakes. And, you know, that's what Ontario gave me for 2,500 kilometers was riding past lakes. So in that way, it's actually pretty sweet. So I carried fairly limited groceries along with me. I got given sausages at my mom's friend's place in Huntsville. So when I stopped off for the night, I got to have some deer sausage, made myself some rice with some tuna in it because that's what I had. And, you know, it was a reasonably kingly meal, you know? But I'll tell you, this campsite that I stayed at this night, the mosquitoes were intense. Intense. So, luckily when I put up my hammock, the mosquito net's already built into it, it's already zippered shut. So essentially you just unzip it for a second, hop in, and then close it again. And then all night I could just see mosquitoes lining my hammock. It was rough. And the next morning was rough. But that's okay, that's next morning's problem. In any case, thanks for coming along. Really cool that you're checking this out. And next video is going to be from someplace in Ontario to, you're not going to believe this, another place in Ontario. Oh my goodness, there's so much Ontario.